interests and everything. Start by introducing myself. My name's Jim Merkley. I grew up in Du Bois County my whole life. I'm a local guy. The history of this means a lot to me, so that's kind of why I like doing these programs. And you were kind of asked about my education. So I graduated from Forest Park in '94, graduated from Vincennes University in law enforcement in '96. I had a full career as a 911 dispatcher for Du Bois County, so I've pretty well been in this area with this exception for about a year where I moved to Indianapolis, worked at the airport up there. But COVID came around 2020, average career of dispatchers 3 years. I made it 20-some, so it was time for a new career. The park ranger who was up here at the time said, hey, you knew me, and he's like, you need to check this out. It's 2 miles from home. I don't even use a turn signal to go to work. And so to me, this has just been like a great second career. That being said, I have gone back to school. I should be graduating in 2 months if I don't do anything stupid. But I got 2 months to go with American Military University, and then I'll have a degree in environmental sciences with a concentration in natural resource management. So kind of refocusing my career at 50 on, a new thing. So that's pretty well with me. I want to tell everyone that I'll do my best to make this as accurate as I can. I wasn't living there at the time. A lot of people here will probably have memories. If there's something I'm saying that it's all for something, stop me. Because I want to make this as accurate as I can. The other thing is, I know there was a lot of people that lost property and there's a lot of hurt and everything like that, and I totally get that and understand it. My thing that I need to do before all my presentations is come up, enjoy the lake, but respect it. Remember that a lot of people lost everything so that you guys can enjoy this, so people can enjoy the water, and that means a lot to me, that to make sure that it's taken care of. I couldn't help it going in, it was not part of that, but it's my responsibility to make sure it's taken care of and that everybody can enjoy it properly. So that's kind of my disclaimer coming in, that I get it, I understand it. Some of my wife's family, I don't know if you know Elin, anybody here? Hartwick's or Brosmer, Dolores, that's my wife's step-grandma, so I know the families real well, the Hakelings, so I kind of know a lot of the people who were in the area, so I get it. Anybody here lose property to the lake? You did? Okay.
Well, my parents did.
Your sons did?
My parents.
Parents did? Okay, all right. So, like I said, I'll try to make it as accurate as I can. I want to make sure that it's right so everybody knows, and that we can share it. I mean, why let all this history be forgotten, So, the other thing I got is 2 programs. They're both about 30 minutes. So we're going to go through the one, which is the towns below the lake, and the others with dam construction. So I kind of run them together so we can get a full hour. See something, stop me. We'll see if, try to answer questions or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll begin. Picture, that's the dam right there with an aerial picture of it. If you look back, can you see my pointer there? The town of Ellsworth would be about a half mile, I don't know how you want to do it, but half mile from that dot. Elin was right in that area, and Newton Stewart would have been back right there on that horizon, just to give you a idea of where all this was at. Next picture is going to be a map from back before the lake was built. And we're looking here again. This is Newton Stewart right in that area.
Oh, crap.
This is Elin here, which if you know where the beach is, you guys been to the beach? You go north of the beach about a half mile, that's Elin. The Newton Stewart ramp in the park, that building there, we'll talk about it later, but that's where the town was, is right there in that parking lot. And then this is the dam. This is where the picture was taken, the last picture was taken. And Ellsworth is here next to the dike area. So when you're up that area where that dike is, that's part of where the town was originally. First town we'll talk about is Ellsworth. And like I was saying before, that picture was taken here. This is the office for the Corps of Engineers. This is the dike. Ellsworth was right in that area, and I'm gonna see if this picture works, but that's, you can kind of see it transitioning. That's what it looked like before the lake was in. So this picture was taken in 1965. This is Ellsworth here. At that time, there was only a couple buildings. And then we'll go to the next slide. This is one I thought was pretty neat. So, like I said, I was a dispatcher in Du Bois County. I did a lot with GIS at the time and mapping and stuff like that. One of the neat things I noticed is if you look right here on the Du Bois County's web map, the town is still platted out. So you can actually go to the map and see where the town is nowadays yet, just by going online. So when people ask, yeah, it's still, it may not, no buildings there, but it's still platted out and as it was a, you know, a town. All right, next picture. So this is the dike, or secondary dam, however you want to call it. We call it the dike. Are you guys familiar with how everything goes up there? Has anybody been up to the dam, walked the trails or anything like that? Okay, so the structure, well, you helped build it, but the structure, like I like to tell people, is actually a mile long. You've got the dam, you've got grout lines, it goes up over the hill. They filled the caves under the hill. They built a wall across the spillway. They built a wall around the next hill, and then there's a secondary dam. The picture of Ellsworth, this is the secondary dam. The corner of the town is right here, and Ellsworth would have been right in this area here. So that's what Ellsworth is nowadays, or the closest I can get to it. And the only picture I have of Ellsworth, and I got it online, a guy named, oh, come back here. Okay, I had to pull this off Facebook. You said you're an Allen? Okay. Crew Allen, I'm not sure who he is, but I know that he was posting it, so I kind of took it. I want to give him credit for it because that's all I have of Ellsworth. This church was long gone before the town went in. It was just a couple buildings at the time. So that's pretty well what Ellsworth was.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
maybe it's just me, but these lights are putting an awful glare on the
Okay, sure.
screen.
Yeah.
Does anybody else having trouble seeing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that's what she's getting it. She just went back.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why do they call them dikes instead of levees?
Because it's actually, what's there is actually a dam and not a levee. So levee's like what goes around rivers to keep things from going over. What we call the dike is actually a dam also. It's got a core, it's got, you know, it's built like a dam.
Can you see now?
Okay.
Can you guys see better now?
Can you see better?
I'm looking at my, yeah. No, it's
Thank
fine.
you.
Yeah, so anyways, that's the Methodist Church in Ellsworth. And I don't have a date on it, but I do know that is a confirmed building from there. Next time we're going to talk about is Elon. A lot of people say Elon, but it's Elon, right? Yeah. So right in here is where the town was. This is the beach here. This is the campground here. And actually this campground is where my wife's grandma, I was telling you about Dolores, that was her family farm right in that area. So I do know some people that, you know, lived in that area. But right in there is where the town was. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna, not playing nice, do a slow move into it. You can see where I overlaid the one from the other as it's changing. And this area right here is Elon. This little farm here, Laura's originally owned it. I can't think of the guy that bought it. Anyways, Roosevelt Drake's farm here. This is where the beach was. So, or is now, sorry. So you come around here, this is where the beach is. You go up here, here's Elon. And that's kind of what that area looked like also before the lake was in. Going forward. Another picture, remember we talking about the other one where the GIS mapping in Du Bois County? There is also GIS mapping for Elam. So if you go into Orange County Elevate, we're looking here, this is the Drake farm I was telling you about. This is where my family, or well, my wife's family had property. But right up in here, you guys see that? That's where the cemetery was, and this is where the river, but this is the town, the plat of Elam, that is still platted today yet.
Did they relocate that cemetery?
Yes, all cemeteries were relocated to just north of Painter Creek to the Patoka Cemetery. So yes, they were all, everything that they knew of was reinterred. This is a picture also of Elon right before everything was built. This area right in here is right on top of the campground where that last picture was taken. And we're looking up toward the dam this way. And if you can see it, right in there is the bridge where it crossed the river in Elon, and that is still intact today. So you can go over it with a boat and a depth finder, and you can actually see that bridge nowadays yet. It's still there.
It's an iron bridge.
It's an iron bridge. There's two of them, and that's where one of them is. So
Where's the other iron bridge?
just east of Osborne Ramp, about 50 yards.
Oh. Okay.
So that was the old road across, and the bridge was there, and when it filled up,
They left the steel structure
those
there.
two, yeah. Now, I've heard different stories. You might know a little better, but I've heard it went up so fast that they couldn't get them out in time. Wasn't that what it was?
I never did hear that, but we took a boat up it before it was actually open one time, and you can see that real good, they were far into the water.
Yeah, they're not too far under, but what I'd kind of heard that it was, they were gonna take them out, but that last year it filled up real quick and they couldn't get them out, so.
July 26, 1979, the flood that
Mhm.
caused Jimmy Carter to come here to English.
Yeah.
It filled the lake. They thought it would be months to get it up, and that day it took out the bridge on 145, and spillway was in danger. They thought it might go because
Yeah.
the water was in the spillway.
Yeah, it was like all of a sudden, and they said that was the first test of it, that
Huge flood.
had it not been there, I guess downstream we really would have had a lot worse time than they did, so.
They said water would never run out the spillway, and it took 100 year flood, and they just like a couple of feet.
Right, that first time, yeah, and it's gone over
That first night.
twice since then, so, which is exactly how it's made to operate. It's done exactly what they want, so it's
What month was that?
What date was that?
July, I think it was
July
the
26th, yeah, 26th.
1979.
Yep,
79.
yeah. My dad talks about that when I was a kid, because he remembers it too, that when things flooded and,
Mhm.
but yeah, I got a picture back of where that, the road washed out on that right off the bat, that I guess it just came in
It
that
took the
way.
pipe, it was a pipe, mid-morning, and by the afternoon, it went bloop, and then it was just,
Just floating, yeah. So that's Elon before the lake was filled. This is another one someone shared with me online. This is what the Christian church looked like in town. So where I showed you that cemetery, that was where this was, and that's where these stones have all been moved, and the remains underneath are all in that cemetery at Painter Creek Cemetery, Patoka Memorial Cemetery. Yeah,
Lester Kaufman was the last minister, I believe.
do it.
Lester Kaufman was the last minister.
Last minister there?
Yeah, many people know, a lot of them know Lester.
Sure. Did the church, does anybody know if the church, if they closed it or if it moved on this one? I know Newton Stewart moved, but I didn't know if Elon.
No, they built a new one up French Lake.
Do it.
It's in French Lake.
They did move
Yeah.
Elon's up there too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure, but
He said they found two markers underneath that though. They didn't know what it buried there or what.
underneath the building? you mean?
Yeah.
Really? Wow. And that's part of why I do these programs too, so I like to learn too, because I want to share it right, so, yeah. So we'll go to the next one, is Newton Stewart. All right. Yeah. Really nice. Okay, so over in here's where the campground was, like where the green, where my pointer is. And over here's where the beach in Elon is. So when you're in the park and you come up and there's the Newton Stewart ramp, You follow the road around, this is what used to be called the State Marina. And now I think they call it just Patoka Marina. But you keep coming back, and right in this parking lot here is where Newton Stewart was. Everyone kind of familiar with that area or been in there? This is gonna be the transition over as best I could with it to what it looked like in 1965. And what we're looking at is the same road coming in. This area right here is the parking lot. And if you look, you can see there's different streets in town. Came down, the bridge is down in, right there's the bridge. Now that one was removed, but that was this is kind of what town looked like from the air back at that time. So we'll go to the next picture. And I like the modern maps, so you can still go to the modern map, the Orange County map. And this is the plat of town. You can see the different streets that are still right through there that are still platted yet. You can see through here. I think it was called Main Street at that time. But that is what the town looks like nowadays with the lake there.
Do you know what the population of Newton Stewart was?
I don't. I talked to some of the Rileys, if you knew the Rileys there. They came and talked to me a couple weeks ago because I was trying, or about 2 months ago, because I was trying to get in as much information as I could. And in fact, when we're done here, a lot of information, they provided me some stories on Newton Stewart that we can look through. The pictures there, they provided those pictures for me. They couldn't make it today. Helen couldn't, so basically she provided information for everyone to look at to help share the story too. So when we're finished, we can go through all that. Anybody recognize this building?
Mhm.
Anybody know what it used to be?
Around the store.
Raleigh store, yeah, inside.
Right? There it is. So that's what they shared with me also, and that's what Riley's store looked like back when it was still open yet. So, and they asked me, is the pump there, is the pump there? You know, I got pictures with the pump. And I'll let you take your picture here and I'll show you. This is the one that I have after it was closed. I pulled this out of some of our records. But there's the pump right there from the store. And the store, I think, was built in '63, they said, was when the new building or this building was built. So it was only about a 10-year-old building at that time. They did cover it with metal, like if you notice that other picture. I did hear from DNR one time someone tried to break into it by going through the metal, and they had a rude awakening when they found concrete blocks on the other side of that metal, so they did not get in.
Good.
And you were asking me about the Mason's Lodge. That was the original store, and in the upstairs was the Mason Lodge. You may even have more history on it than I do. But that was the Newton Stewart Mason Lodge, correct? Okay.
Masonic one.
Masonic Lodge. So that's what that building looks like.
They joined even, or what was it, cost 145 at Love Summit, where they had all the houses built and everything. They joined the Evelyn Lodge.
Okay, yeah.
They're on 145, or they moved it up there.
The Elon Lodge?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's so.
Or well, might have been Newton Stewart Lodge instead of Evelyn.
Newton Stewart.
Newton Stewart still exists,
Yeah, Newton Stewart still
Okay.
exists on Wildwood Lake Road.
Sure.
But Newton
this
Stewart,
was moved up there though, this way.
from this location, Newton Stewart Lodge, Masonic Lodge number 432, moved to Ethel, at the upstairs of the building in Ethel.
In Ethel?
Yeah.
And
And then from there, they built, my uncle donated the property to build where the lodge is today.
now the building in Ethel got tore down about a year ago. So
That's
it's
what I
fine.
heard.
Yeah,
No one knew about, I didn't hear about it till way after the fact.
Yeah, I saw it on, I think Slices of Orange County or something like that had it on there when all that's where I get a lot of my information too, just through the locals. It's all interesting to me. Next picture we're looking at is the Newton Stewart Church. So that's south of French Lick now, right? I think on 145, didn't they
Yeah.
move? And that's kind of a before and after what it looked like. Let's see, we're a little ahead of schedule, sorry about that. So that's the end of the first program. I do have a second one, but before I get into the second one, it's more about the construction of the dam and stuff. We got any questions on this, or, yeah, go ahead.
So, the cemeteries were moved, but what about the structures in the buildings? Were they dismantled and moved?
Everything depends on it. So I know because, well, like my wife's grandpa did help with the construction, stuff like that. Some of the houses, like the log ones, I think there's one up in Spring Mill now. I know I've got a call from someone in French Lick, there was a log house moved there. Nearby the lake, there's a couple of them where people have bought them and the log houses put them together. I know of some that have been moved, so I think it all depended. I know one family that kept it, took it with them and rebuilt it. I know some of the bridges were taken out and moved other places in the county. So I think I'm gonna say, my best guess is a case-by-case basis on depending on what the structure was, what the, if it was able to be moved, if it was viable to be moved, or if it was better to rebuild. So to give a straight answer, I think from what I can gather and what I've researched, it's gonna be case by case.
But some of them are just under the lake.
No, there's none under the lake.
Okay.
They were all either removed or destroyed,
Gotcha.
or the stuff that couldn't be moved, they.
And Raleigh Story is the only one that stayed there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the only one left, yeah. The other buildings, like the people in like the lodge moved, but the building did not because of the, it was not, wouldn't be real feasible to move, move that.
So Jim, this past July, I met one of the people that was responsible for moving all the graves from all the cemeteries. And he told me that there was 300 graves moved. And I don't know if you knew
I
that,
think it was
or
closer to 500, I think.
was it 500?
I think closer
Okay.
to 500, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's 20 different cemeteries.
that many.
Yeah, and if you go up there now, so if you go into that cemetery and you look up on the wall, it's got a map of where each one, so if you're trying to find family or do genealogy, they're mapped out by which one is which. So, like if you want to go to the Eland Cemetery, there's a section just for that there, and the Newton Stewart ones have that, so it's all where you can find out where they're at yet, so.
So here's a question. Did they remove some like of the old cemeteries that wasn't going to be underwater, but was acquired during the purchase of the land?
Yes.
For the lake?
Yes, they
relocated
moved.
all
Everything that is on Corps of Engineers property at Patoka Lake has been moved that is known about. I mean, I'm sure over the last 20,000 years, stuff's happened there that nobody knows about, but everything known since modern times has been moved, so.
Two questions.
Yeah.
Because I have in my head that I vaguely remember as a kid this kind of finishing up, but I could be, remembering stories other people told me. What was the span of the project? How long,
Okay,
when did it
so, yeah, and I guess maybe I should have got into the beginning with, and some of the stuff that makes Patoka so special. So the Patoka Lake was authorized under what is called the Flood Control Act of 1965, or 8972. And that number makes Patoka very, very special, because that was the first cost share lake, or I'm gonna say one of the very first cost share lakes. So before 1965, with the Corps of Engineers, they were building lakes and managing them and running them and doing all, and they decided, hey, wait a second, we're a bunch of engineers, we wanna build stuff, we don't wanna manage stuff, we wanna build it. So if you go to like down in Kentucky and a lot of the other lakes, you've got the Corps of Engineers guys like me running campgrounds, you've got them, taking care of the lake from beginning to end, and they had houses sold down to the water and all that. Well, with the 8972 project, it's called a cost share project. So the Corps of Engineers says, hey, we're gonna build this, however, We want the land to be managed by someone who wants to run the land, manage the land, which is the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. So that's how that partnership came in, that we built the the Corps of Engineers built the buildings, and we turned them over to the state. The state then manages all but about 1,000 acres. So my area is really only about 1,000 acres by the dam, where we control water, that I actually do the natural resources and the parks and stuff like that. Everything else has been turned over to the state. So, like I said, if it's not the first, it's one of the first, because it was within 2 months of that bill coming in was when Patoka was authorized. I think it was 89-273 or something like that. So that makes Patoka very unique in that stage. But what gets even more interesting is when it came into the early 70s. So they started the dam, I think acquiring in 71. The tower was built 72 to 74. But in that 70-71 time frame, some laws came around that helped with the environment and stuff like that, and allowed no private exclusive access to the water. So a lot of people say, well, why did Patoka, and I've heard this, why did they take up so much land? We got 16,000 acres of land, 8,800 acres of water. What that did was provided a buffer around the entire lake, or a carbon filter. So you don't have runoff, you don't have sewage. You go up to a lot of other lakes where you've got all these houses around it. What's gonna run off even if you are catching all the sewage? You've got vehicles parking, you've got all that. That law came in, and that's kind of why they did what they did. They put a big buffer around the water so that we have some of the cleanest water that you can get. So it was really good. And Emily back there, I'll throw you out into the bus a little bit. She knows a lot about that too. She's on the watershed committee. She's the director of it. So does a great job. And yeah, if you want to throw anything in on it, you can. But
We clean up every year.
Clean up every year,
National Public Lands Day, come home.
yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Was this Indiana state law or federal law?
Federal. Federal law, PL, and you can Google 8972.
So any reservoir after that date,
Had to.
in all
Yes.
continental USA,
So the Louisville district, our sister reservoir is Taylorsville. It came in a little bit after us in 83 was when it was finished. Patoka was 79. So it's about 3 years behind. They're similar to us as an 8972, meaning that they don't have exclusive access. The only way you can get your vehicle or a boat in that water is to go through public ramps. You cannot have your own road down to the water. You cannot, but to me, it's one of the greatest things they did was, to help keep it clean, take care of it.
So basically, 10 years. They started in.
Oh, sorry, let me get back, I got off track. 72, 74, they built the tower. 75 to 78, they built the dam, right? He helped build it, so you've got one of the construction guys here.
Maybe a little bit in 79.
A little bit in 79 yet, but
Okay, so it-
filled up July 26, I think is when it filled, of 79, and opened to the public in, I think, July of 1980 maybe.
Okay,
August.
okay.
Was it August? Okay.
Okay, so I wasn't imagining that.
No, so it took a long time, and that's like, when was the lake, it's a good question, because it was built over about 15 years, start to finish. From when it was authorized to when, hey, here's the keys,
Yeah.
we're done, so.
And then my second question, I know you said that Ellsworth was just a couple of buildings.
Yeah.
It looked like Newton Stewart was the largest town.
It was, yes.
Can you give me an idea of population? Are we talking 100 people, or are we talking?
I'm gonna say, from what I understand, what I've told, maybe 20. There was a couple buildings, by that time it was kind of going its own way. Most of the three towns, their heyday was probably before Great Depression and vehicles.
Then that led me to the.
Yeah, when you can get to the store, yeah. So they were all in the decline. What made Newton Stewart is they still had Riley Store, and they still had a little bit of people, people coming to that area yet, so. Does that kind of answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Does the name Patoka have a meaning? Is it a Native American name?
I have looked that up, and I've heard different things, but the one I found was in a history book from Gibson County that said it's an Indian term for log on bottom.
For what?
Log on the bottom is what it's,
So,
There was IU Press published a book years ago, Indiana Place Names, and I don't know if it's still in print, but in there it said it meant Muddy River, which would be very appropriate.
Which, and that would fit,
But there were,
Yeah.
it said there were other reasons.
there are other reasons,
Stories,
which,
but that was the one they did.
yeah, and that may fit too with it being a direct transfer, you know, Muddy Bottom, Log and Bottom, so,
Canoes, yeah.
yeah, kind of, it fits with what you're saying, so yeah, kind of, yeah. So, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started on the next slideshow, if that's okay with you guys. Anybody need a break real quick before we get going on it? Because it's about 20-30 minutes also, so. It's, the next one I do, providing this thing plays nice, is about the dam and the construction of the dam. That's something I get a lot of stories on, a lot of, not stories, but questions. Slideshow. All right, so we're up and going. Okay, so you're talking about construction, so we're gonna actually get into that on this part of it. We did the 8972, I kind of pounded that in the ground. One of the things about Patoka Lake that makes it unique also is that in 1971, there was a earthquake out in California. And one of the dams out there liquefied and kind of went down. So when they built this one, they had that in mind, saying, we don't want that to happen here. And I think they've done a pretty good job of mitigating it. So we're gonna look here at this dam, but this is my pointer. Going here. So we're looking here at the tower, 72 to 74. My office sits right in here. And the main, when you hear the dam, this is what most people think of. It's about 1,500 feet long, but in reality, the dam starts right here at the road. It follows this road, and what they did was a grout line. So karst or caves have a lot of little holes and leaks, you know, like kind of like Swiss cheese, only smaller. They went and they drilled holes down, and they filled all those cracks and crevices with a grout or a conduit, or not conduit, with a grout. So they started at that point, filled all the way up to here. The dam itself, we're gonna get into that a little bit, and then up over the top of this hill was a grout line also. So what they did was they drilled down there, filled all the little fissures up all the way across that. And we'll get into the rest of it there, but, so when I talk about the dam being a mile long,
It really is.
it really is, yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned that change came about in 1971 due to an earthquake in California.
Yeah.
So this dam was under construction before
It was the-
1971.
So the design was, the tower started in 72, so they had time, they redesigned, I think there was 13 major revisions as they built this dam to bring it up. So it was right about when the exclusive access changed. There was a lot changing in the government and environment at that time when this went in to make this thing like one of the first of this type of lake. So, another thing I want to point out here is, you see the river here? They actually rerouted it to come over here through the tower when the tower was built, but the original river before this was built came over right through here and followed it down to right there. So the river was actually on the other side of the dam and they moved it. This is the Crawford Dam. So before they could build this, the main dam, which you helped with the riprap on it, right? The Crawford Dam was here. And that whole purpose was to keep this thing dry so that the water could come around and go through the tower and that they could build the dam. This is an early picture of everything. So, like I pointed earlier, we got the dam here. up over the hills where the grout line went. This is the spillway where the water, we talk about the water and everything getting high, or that's deliberately built about 13 feet lower than the two dams so that it does its job, and if we get high enough, it just runs through where at full capacity, it's doing its job. Then they went over this hill here with the grout line, and they actually dug a trench around the front of that hill there, right here, and they filled it with concrete also, so there's actually what they call a cutoff wall all the way around there to the second dam or the dike, all the way across. So it's 1.2 miles from beginning to end. I'll show another pic from another angle. We're looking at grout line, dam. You can kind of see the grout line here if you look. You see where it's kind of open there? There's grout line, or a cutoff wall here. Up here's another grout line, cutoff wall runs under the ground here, and then there's another dam. So that's actually how long Patoka Dam is. So it's not just the one piece, it's a full system, which is very unique compared to a lot of the other ones in the area. Here's a picture of it during construction. Also, you can see water coming out the conduit, going down the New River. But if you look in the background, here's the tower. This is the Crawford Dam when it was starting to fill. And this is what it looks like under the water. When people ask me, they say, hey, what's it look like under there? That's what you're looking at. So,
That's like the deepest part of the lake.
deepest part is right there before the tower, because we actually go out every other week and we do measurements, and we have the deepest part of the lake. Right now it's about 47 feet, and that's in the channel. So average depth's about 22 feet on the lake. So it's not a terribly deep lake. It's more of a sprawling, spread out lake. Yeah, go ahead.
From the previous session and all the pictures we saw,
Oh,
the whole valley is
Yeah.
basically Patoka River floodplain.
it is. It's,
Other than the dam, was there any major excavation, dirt moving necessary in the rest of the valley?
nothing major. Now, there was pipes and infrastructure that went underneath, but as for the main, it was there. There was some tree removal and stuff, and little, but nothing major, so. All right, so the next picture, we're looking at the tailwater here again. This is the Stilling Basin. This is where you can go fishing. You can kind of see that Crawford Dam. But if you know where our wetlands is, there was there was actually a building there, and this is where the construction stuff was. So you're kind of looking at the same thing now, but now you look at a big wetland. We got a parking lot down in here. It's done a lot of changing. So. This picture of the tower now from our overlook. You're looking at the dam. Right through here's where the Crawford Dam was. But the reason I want to bring this one up is take a note in here. This is where our water intake is. And this is what it looked like in 1972 or later. Yeah. So we're looking at the same picture. The water line is right about right there, so you can tell how deep the water is. And the deepest spot is like right in there. That's where we take our temperatures. So what's interesting too about this dam, or the tower, is that we have what's called multi-levels. Here's 3 of them, and here's the other 3. And we have the option to pull water from different levels of the lake, and the purpose of that is want to change temperature or water quality downstream. So like in the summertime, if we were pulling off the bottom or the mains, which these are the main gates here, the water would be like 54 degrees in 100-degree weather. That's not good for fish or anything like that. So one of the things this lake was built with is the ability to control what level we pull water from. Or like downstream, Jasper gets water from the river. If there's a little bit of manganese or something that's all flavored or whatever that they don't like, we can control what we give them and give them a different type of water. So that's kind of neat. Another neat thing about the tower is, as far as we know, there's only two in the Corps of Engineers called the wet tower. And this one is one of the two. When we go in this tower, the water level is the same in the tower as it is outside. So I could actually go fishing inside the tower on this. The other lakes have piping and tubes where it would run through pipes and come out the back end. This one here is a wet tower, so it's designed, goes through down and out the bottom. I have asked a couple people why they did it. The only thing I can think of is earthquake proof in case cracked or something, that the water can still stay level and it can still deal with it, but as far as confirming it, I can't confirm that, so.
So this tower
Yeah.
is where we get our drinking water.
Actually, no.
Okay.
This tower is what feeds the river.
The output,
Yeah, this is the
river downstream.
conduit and the tailwater.
Okay.
Where you get your water from is about 1.5 miles south. There's Patoka Regional Water Intake. And there's a book I'm gonna plug here that Patoka Water made called Those Kids Deserve Water Too. And you can check it out here. So they've got it here. Really, really good book. It was written by the people at Patoka Regional Water on how they got it done on their part, because that's a unicorn in itself also, because that was another one of the first, is a state agency working with the federal government for drinking water. And it's got a whole thing, pictures of how they built all that and where their water intake is all that.
So do you have a map to show where that water, our drinking water
Yeah.
come from?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll go back to the beginning.
You may have mentioned that,
I didn't. No, I don't.
or just proximity.
Let me, when I get done, I'll pull it up
Okay,
for you.
okay.
Yeah, because I'll have to do some research and I don't want to throw everyone off too much and get too off topic, but it's 1 mile south. It's between Lick Fort Marina and,
So it's not in Patoka Lake proper?
it is.
It
Yeah.
is still, okay.
Yeah, it's very much so, yeah. This is for Jasper's drinking water. So Jasper, Winslow on downstream, yeah.
Oh, this controls the drinking water that.
This controls the
Jasper-
river,
The
yeah,
river. And Jasper still gets water
from the river.
from the river. I did not
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
I thought it was, okay.
Yeah, so that's why when I was talking about the drinking water levels,
Okay.
they can do the same thing, I think, on their end too, but
Okay.
as for Jasper, when Jasper City needs different water, we can provide them with a different quality water as needed.
Wow, okay.
I have a question,
Yeah.
like you mentioned the magnesium.
Yeah.
Does that pool, do you pull that from different pools or different depths?
Different levels depending, because like thermoclines, that you get, depending on the temperature, there's different, like when when lakes turn over, you ever hear of like ponds
Well,
and stuff?
Annette talks about that, she
Yeah.
said when they flip the lake, that's
Yeah.
what she said.
So that's-
I don't know.
So like when the temperature, it'll all equalize, it
Mhm.
makes it smell a little different, and that's where we can control at what level that's coming off of.
Okay, so it's not really an additive, like a
No,
salt,
it's
Like
it's all natural, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's just at that level, there's a certain,
Okay, like
Yeah.
ore or anything, like your rock, it has different.
it's just a different level, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And different temperatures, so.
Okay.
So this is the tower, finished in 1974. A lot of people think, and we talked about this too, the lake was finished in 74, but it was actually turned over in 1980. The tower was finished in 74. So what we're going to look at now is a picture of what it looked like in 1974 from the same spot.
Do they have a chemist on, like, full-time there that monitors those?
You mean the levels or?
No, the water, what's in the water, like the magnesium and things you're talking
That
about.
so when we talk about the magnesium, that's picked up at Jasper City at their, so it's nothing toxic, nothing wrong, it's
No,
just,
I just wonder,
yeah,
because if you
right.
want it, you have to do a test to figure
yeah,
out.
the water, when they draw the water out,
Sure,
they're testing what they get, and they're saying, hey, our levels are little,
yeah,
can you adjust for our levels, so,
sure.
yeah. And now I think they've actually been able to do like UV lights and stuff like that to even eliminate that, but, yeah, it's just an extra control that this lake was given.
I like it. It's
Yeah, or like I said, when It's hot out, fish, all the way, you don't have fish kills or anything like that because we can control that temperature for the wildlife also. So it's kind of a nice feature they put into that. We're looking here below the water. You can kind of see, this is before the dam was even started. Water level would have been right about here. But, yeah, that's the tower. Okay, this is what it looks like now standing on the left abutment. And we're looking out here this way, you can kind of see, the big thing I'm going to point out is you see this dip here and watch these hills. So keep an eye on it. And that's what it looked like during construction. But you can kind of see where the dip is right here. And the hills. And the water level would be right about there. So that kind of tells you about how deep the water is and what's below the water level. Another before and after.
Jim, the pipes that were laying there, what were those pipes? Were they just,
Okay, what those do,
are they still there today?
no, they are not.
Okay.
And from what I've gathered, no one, I haven't talked to anybody who dealt with it yet, but when this area here would get water from rains, they were able to pump it out. So it kind of kept that Crawford Dam area dry so that they could work on it. That's pretty close to
Yeah, there was a man there on them pumps about all the time.
keep it dry. Yeah. So that's at least what I'm getting out of it, but that kind of fits with,
So with this, like when they built the canals and locks and dams on the Ohio, and I know that's different, but they had basically worked those cylinder things where they pumped it out and they worked, did they actually put like barriers or like walls or?
That's what this Crawford Dam is here,
Okay.
is the barrier. You were talking about a levee
Yeah,
earlier? That was actually a levee to keep it from coming over and getting into the construction.
okay.
So it's a little different, it's like a dam, but a little different, but it was designed to take the water that was built up over here and divert it around here into the tower. Over here, this area was supposed to stay dry because they were building the dam, off this direction. So that was pumps so they could keep that area dry and keep constructing without having a lake come up around them.
Okay, I understand, okay.
All right, another one of my before and afters. They're standing on the dam. This is the left abutment here, right abutment over here. And you can kind of see where that grout line runs over the top. You see that open area? I was talking about that. And this is what it looked like when they were constructing it. So, coffer dam over here like we talked about. You can kind of see they built abutments, so they actually built concrete walls over here to keep the water and keep everything in place. This area here is a 13-foot wide at the top called impervious clay. They actually filtered it where it's designed that water does not go through it. So that's what the basic core of the dam looks like.
We were working there, was also told that was in case of an earthquake, it would help do something with that.
Help it.
Yeah, it
Because
moves.
it's bound.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, instead of being a hard concrete one that would crack,
Okay.
the clay will settle and
Keep it from
kind of move itself, yeah.
I wondered if that was something somebody just said, or if that was real.
Yeah, that's part, plus two, it was cheaper.
Thought they might have told
Yeah.
us
Yeah, no, it really was, and but it was cheaper too than to try and pour up.
that.
Because I know some of the lakes up north, they actually have the poured ones, and depending on how the concrete was made, they still grow. The concrete still cures and moves and does all sorts of weird stuff, so that's actually a better deal with what we got here that's, So here's something I want to hit on too. We're looking at the right abutment, looking over the last picture was over here on the right abutment, so that's where it was taken. And we're looking down, and this is the bottom of the keyway, right in here. Another thing they did different, a design difference, compared to other lakes is this one they put in a keyway system. One of the ones down in Kentucky, they didn't do that, and now they're going back and they have to rebuild a dam with a dam in place, and they're trying to do that. It's a major, major project, built on the exact same rock that Patoka was built on, the Glendine limestone. So when they learned about that and started learning here, they learned a lot, and they decided to go down to solid rock. So this is 150 feet or 145 feet below that road that we were on earlier. When I was looking across, the dam in that center area is 145 feet deep.
And that's
Yeah.
what they did at the Kentucky Dam, isn't it, where they
That's what they're doing now.
Yeah.
It's built on the same stone as Patoka, except at that time they didn't know well enough and they didn't put the keyway in.
Okay.
So now they're having to fix that, where ours was built right. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
And that's what was filled with the clay.
That's what's filled with the clay, yeah, the impervious clay.
The whole depth of that.
All the way, and they didn't go 150 feet deep all the way across, because like right in here, they hit solid. And they hit solid, so there was no need to, but wherever it wasn't solid, they went down. And that was part of those design changes I told you about, that they ran across stuff and, hey, let's make it a little better.
Where'd they get the clay from?
On top of this hill where we're at right here. So one thing I didn't do was, battery's getting low. Clay core right here. Some more of it.
So they processed it right on the dam then, they didn't have to haul it from.
Do it. You're right, they got it on top of this hill up here, and then they filtered it. Just a second, I'm gonna, just so we don't lose a program in the middle of the program, I'm gonna grab my charger. So, yeah, you can kind of see the multi-levels here, the tower, how they're running everything through there. There we go.
We just lost it.
Oh, did I lose it? Yep, shutting down. It wasn't fast enough, was I? So, maybe it'll come back up again. Anyways, we can keep talking about while this is coming back up. I'll kind of hit a plug on these books.
Oh, Jim?
Yeah.
The dam, how wide is it at its base?
At the base, I'm gonna say 300 feet.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Okay.
Because the conduit itself is 100 yards, or a football field. So one of the problems about being a federal employee and you have a computer, they have so much security stuff on there, your batteries cook really, really quick. So that's kind of why I did that.
The librarian came to your rescue.
She saved me. So yeah, I didn't get there in time. So while that's all coming back up, this book here, David Dahl wrote it. He was one of the engineers. And it was written about how they got the water into Patoka Lake. One of the neat things about here, I don't know if anybody's familiar with East Ridge Spring or heard of East Ridge Spring here?
Yeah.
Okay, 100 people were getting water from it. You remember what they found out with it? The cattle farm on top of the hill was getting E. coli in it, so there was 100. So that was the best source of water in the summertime for a lot of people. There was a lot of cisterns, and that's kind of what hurt the area. So this is basically part of their thing, was they wanted kids to have safe, clean drinking water, and that was one of the pushes that got Patoka Lake in. Patoka Lake was built originally for flood control, drinking water number 2, and recreation number 3 in that order. So if you guys get a chance to read that book, I learned a lot out of that book. That was really good. Apologize for that battery. Another thing I brought is some of the maps from before the lake was built, when they did the land acquisitions. If you guys have family or something, want to see where your property was, I should be able to find it here, so we can kind of look at that afterwards. The family brought some pictures of stuff. from Newton Stewart, so the Riley family did that. I got some a book on fossils that was from the Molzers, which is now Qualters. So it's a book written in the 1940s in that area. And there's some personal stories here that the Rileys also gave me that we can read through.
Now, does the Corps maintain a person in that tower?
Not in the tower, but I'm an operator. There's 5 of us who operate it. And that's one of our main jobs is make sure that we're flipping the lever when we need to, so.
Okay. Well, I'm just comparing like, kennels and locks or something, those, and I know that's totally different, but that's where their controls.
We have
There
the
is a
controls,
person there.
Yeah. And that's just to make sure nothing goes wrong when we're changing it. Now, as for actual control over what level we keep that comes from Louisville. They have hydraulic engineers who are constantly watching weather, watching what comes in, what goes down, who really know how to control that stuff, because it's not just a bunch of guys up there saying, oh, we need to get it to this, let's cut her loose. They've got a lot of parameters that they get into with that.
So
Yeah, go
that
ahead,
comes
Dave.
out of Louisville.
Oh, sorry.
Yay.
Is the tower open for tours or is it closed to the public?
Okay, so it is closed to the public with the exception, if I can get a group ahead of time, and I have to almost have a group, and I have to call Louisville and get histories or criminal records checks done before we go into it. So it's not impossible, but it is a whole process. And up to 10 years ago, you could go into it, but now they decided that, we don't want everybody knowing how the stuff works in case someone wants to come in and.
Well, that's the point of terrorism attack. I mean, you take out that lake, you hurt a
Bingo.
lot of people.
Yeah, so it kind of takes the tourist part out of it, but with some work it can be done, so let's see where we.
So Jim, can you go down to all 3 levels then? Physically walk, is it stairs or an elevator?
Stairs, and they're curlicue stairs, so they're hard to get down to, so. But you get down to the water level, and now if they drain everything right, you can actually go down to the bottom of the lake in it. But since we're a wet tower, we just go down the 3 levels. So where are we at here?
Are there glass windows to look at the water?
There's not, you can just walk out on the back deck and that's it. It's just a cold concrete building. But it is pretty neat though. It's an engineering marvel. So we're back to the next, we're looking here at this picture right before it decided it wanted to shut down. And you're looking at our multi-levels, you're looking at our tower, the clay core. And then you've got the concrete abutment here. This is the dike. Remember we talking about Ellsworth being over in here? This is made the exact same way as what the other dam is. It just doesn't have all the fancy stuff and all that, but it's got a clay core in it also. It actually had caves and stuff, more caves than what the other one did that they had to deal with. This is what it looked like when they were building it. So you can tell it looks fairly similar. One of the problems they had on this one is this guy right here. People keep asking me a lot of, was there a big cave? Was there a big cave? Well, this is what it was, right here.
That's cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That is
Is
really
that the
cool.
keyway?
Do what?
Is that the keyway?
This is actually in the dike, so this is the
Okay.
keyway. This would be the keyway. So when I was talking to Jacobs, Hillary Jacobs, I don't know if you guys know him or not. He worked on the project. He came into the lake a couple of weeks ago. He's one of the guys actually in this picture here. And when I look on all the maps and everything, it's called the Fillet, is what they call this part of the lake. And I said, so was that the fillet or the fillet? Because like if it's French, it'd be the fillet. He said, no, it's the fillet. You got a bunch of old guys here that, yeah, we just call it the fillet. So what they did was this. Is they formed it up, and he said they just started filling. They didn't know where the back of it was. They just filled till the concrete quit running and built it all the way up.
Did you say kind of tubing to like push that air out so the concrete could roll in there? Or
Well, the cave was behind it, so it filled until,
it
it just filled and filled. They said they kept
Wow.
working it
Wow.
until it quit filling. And what they ended up, so here's another angle of it.
Did they say how many loads they?
He actually asked me if I knew how many. I said, I don't. He said, they just started one day and just started
Oh, wow, that was a lot.
going. So it was treated right. I mean, what else are you gonna do with it?
Right.
And it's up high enough too. But here's one of the other neat things. Is right in here. Those are all little caves that they came across and they had to fill in that keyway on the dike. And so you can kind of see that's what they did with it. Anyways, that's my second presentation. Got any questions on that? Yeah.
In those caves, in that keyway, did they find any water or, recent water activity or like after a rain or a flood or a spring?
Okay, good question. So at the back end of our area, we got the Hall Spring Cave. I don't know if you guys ever walked the trail up there and seen the cave along the trails. We do have a cave and water does come out of it. So we do monitor to make sure, but most of it's coming downstream. So like where our spillway is, it's flat. Where's the water gonna go? It goes down and comes out there. So yes, there are caves. One time in the 90s, they did have a little area open up. So we do watch for that kind of stuff. But you just go in, you drill and put more grout in, fill it up, close it off. So even if things do happen, and they will, and it's not gonna be anything that's gonna be, you've got modern technology, they'll just clog it back up again. So, yeah, Dave, go ahead.
Is there, during the construction of the dam like this, or water body, is there a projected useful life of this before it silts in, or?
There is, and I've heard two different things. We've done the training and stuff like this. I think the original was built for 300 years. However, most infrastructure in it is designed for 50 years. Yeah. But what,
Yeah, we're getting close.
and that's one of our big things with the Corps of Engineers is how we're gonna maintain this infrastructure. But just because it's designed for 50 years doesn't mean we can't repair it. That's if they just put it in and we don't maintain it. So you keep maintaining it, you keep things going, you push that date back, and you can go indefinitely. So like, let's just say the gate's worn, we can change a gate. You know, you can fix concrete, you can fix, or like even Rough River, they've got that issue and they're fixing it in place. They're building a new dam with the dam and putting a new tower in with water in and everything. So those guys are pretty smart. They can deal with a lot of issues.
Well, and I don't know that it's related to this project, but this past spring, I noticed, I was going to Jasper, and for months, I'd turn there left, and I don't remember the number of the highway, but I'd turn like I'm going through Celestine to go to Jasper.
Yeah.
And that area right there
Yeah.
was just bone dry.
And
And then the lake, as I'm getting to the county line, was very, very low. And my husband and I had made the comment, okay, well, at first we thought, well, maybe we're just in a drought situation.
Yeah.
But then, no, it
It's
rains,
normal.
and it rains, and it rains, and it rains.
Yeah.
And it was still really low. Were they doing some sort of
So,
repair at that point? Because that was my comment, was I wonder if they've got the dam, so that.
okay, we'll get into that. If we're at an hour, so if anybody needs to go, I'll let you guys go. But if you want to continue, because you've hit a very good spot.
Good.
Because it's a lot of questions, but
Because I really was trying to figure out how to get a hold of somebody to get that answer, so I'm glad you're here.
yeah, I'm your guy. So it's actually perfectly normal where we're at. What has happened is, and since we're all here, we'll do the long version. Patoka River is a small river that runs 120 miles and has 3 towns and has lost 30% of its drainage capacity over the last 50 years due to siltation and everything else. We cannot just flip the lever and drain the lake down. So like when we had the high water event in 2019, it took almost 2 years to get it back down to where we want. Level is at 536 in the summer and 532 in the winter, and I think we're about 534 now, which is about where we're at. So we actually got down to 532 in the winter. Was the first time we've been there in like years. So we're actually where we want to be. We're not low, we're just actually finally able to get enough water out to the point where we were at where we want to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, it looks low, but it's where we want it to be.
Okay.
Okay, but it's naturally going low. I
Well-
mean, you're not doing anything to it.
No, we're trying to get it to that, because that's where it's supposed to sit at. It's not,
It's
You see
not
that
low
water
now.
was almost up to that bridge there at that
Right.
turnoff.
And we
I mean,
didn't-
It was like right
Yeah.
there.
but we just couldn't let it out.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what, it's the opposite of what you think. It's not low, it's just we're out west, you got drought and stuff, we've got the opposite. We can't get it downstream fast enough, so it's holding, yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I guess the point is it lower now because you're allowing for winter snow melt, spring, I mean, you've got some buffer room there.
Yeah, so we got
When snow melt and spring rains,
right.
it's not gonna flood it, right?
We got a 4-foot buffer that we run on it, and the summer, what we do is usually, I think we got another 3 or 4 weeks till we go to winter pool.
Right.
So what we do is we keep it a little high so the farmers can get all their crops out downstream. And then in December, we start releasing. And I think about mid-April, March, April, we start holding back for spring rains. What happened this year, we didn't get the spring rains to bring it up to 536. So we always stayed above that 532. We just didn't get, we were like 535, we were about a foot low, which really is not terrible if you think about it. So we were just about a foot low from our summer projected, which is really not low. It just gives us an extra foot of flood storage.
Right.
And then we're gonna start releasing here in a little bit to get back down to 532. To drop another we're gonna probably drop another 2-3 feet in a month in anticipation for spring rains.
So that area, and somebody correct me if I've got the highway numbers wrong, so is it 237 and 145?
145 and 164, right where the old road was? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so is that not supposed to be underwater?
It doesn't, no, it doesn't have to.
In optimal,
Right, yeah, it's where we're optimal right now.
okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, if you see it, we're right where we should be.
Okay.
For a long time, there was a lot of water there. We
Yeah.
thought that was what normal was
Yeah,
supposed to be,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And so now we're like, there's something wrong, but really this is
Exactly.
what you wanted all along.
Right. And to try to put it out publicly, how do you explain
Right.
Yeah.
the whole process? Because, I mean, it's even deeper than that. I mean, it's a whole thing. Yeah, go ahead.
If you drop a foot of elevation, how many gallons of water is that?
Oh, man. Acre feet. I can tell you about how much we release. I've got those numbers, but I don't, because we go from 536, we're at 8,800 acres. When we hit 549, which is the max elevation where the spillway is, we jump up to 11,500, so we gain 3,000 surface acres, and 13 feet of elevation. So it's a lot of water.
So that's why sometimes you see that little lake, that little island that has a flag out there. Sometimes you can barely see
because
it,
we're right-
and then sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, okay,
So everything's normal with the lake. We're not,
okay.
yeah, and we don't go, 531's the lowest it's ever been. And here's,
Year?
to what?
Do you know what year that was?
2013, because that's before I worked up there, and that was that drought year when it quit running over the Jasper on the river.
Did it?
Yeah, so I know that one from personal experience,
So,
2013 was
Did
low.
that impact Jasper water then?
We just released, well,
You released,
they released more to make sure Jasper's got enough
They have
water.
other water sources in Jasper too. They have Beaver and they have, Jasper Outdoor Rec.
Yeah, that's what they were
They
originally,
pulled in on those reserves.
So that's where-
Yeah.
the book comes in. In 1954, the Jasper Rec wasn't
It's really
built.
Deerwood, I guess.
Do it.
It's Deerwood is where the actual reserve is, right, of water?
Well, Beaver's the reserve, or was. It's kind of,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So before Beaver was built,
I said, are you feeling?
they had a drought, and Alvin Roadster went and bought pumps.
Yes.
And they actually pumped from the White River up over the top of 56 and let it run down into Patoka so Jasper could have drinking water. And that's another one of those things. Yes, Patoka's flood control, but it's also drinking water control. So if we need water downstream, we can release downstream. So that's kinda in there, and you're exactly right on that. And Beaver was originally designed to release, but as much water as they use now, it can't do it. And plus, they get upset when you let their water out there. They get,
As a kid, I grew up in Celestine.
okay, yeah.
And, Jasper was that was a city to us, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I can remember it being flooded a lot.
Yeah.
And the bridge would be out, and there was an area there to the left, once you cross the bridge to the left, there was an area called Frogtown.
Yeah.
And oh
Always.
my gosh, it stunk so bad back in there, because it was like a swamp,
Yeah.
right?
Frogtown Road.
Yeah, and so now you go, I mean, now there's Holiday Inn back there, and
Yeah.
Coca-Cola plants there, and.
So, being from Du Bois County, I actually grew up the first 8 grades downtown Jasper.
Yeah.
In that area. My neighbor was Hermie Kiefer, which probably guys don't know him, but he was born in 1896.
Wow.
So when I was 20, he was 100. So he was an 80-year-old guy. But he remembered the 1913 flood. He could show on my steps where the water came to.
Yeah.
He remembered the first fire. He was on the fire department for 50 years. He remembered carrying the ladders to the fire. So a lot of my history that I like comes from talking to this guy who lived it and talked about those floods you're talking about. And that's where I learned a lot about that. But yeah.
How many acres is Beaver Lake?
330.
Oh, that's not very
Why
big.
aren't you on it?
Yeah, it's not a lot, because they were gonna try to get rid of the skiing, you remember that years ago? Cause it was so
Yeah.
small and they grandfathered it
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
It was controversial. at
it
the
was,
time.
yeah. And now they still ski, so, well,
Yeah.
Patoka's there now, so,
It's limited how much they ski there, though. There's areas you're not allowed to ski on.
yeah.
Do they have a beach? Do they swim there?
Beaver? No, they don't, it's,
Just ski.
Docks, and they just jump in.
jump in, yeah. Does anybody else got any questions or anything, or, yeah?
How many land purchases were involved with the lake and what was the dollar amount?
A lot. I'm gonna say, I thought 1,500 people and maybe 500 plots of land. I've got it actually up here if you guys wanna come up here and look at it. I've got all the plots and plats if you guys wanna look through it. So you can see exactly what was bought in this one map here, so. Yeah.
You might be interested, they might be interested to
Yeah.
know, when the Corps of Engineers, they had boxes with a file on every one of those properties with photos, and then the documentation, legal description. And, all that, when the lake was finished, was up in Arthur Dillard's law office in Haley. The Corps didn't want it anymore. And I actually got permission to go get all those boxes, and their DNR has them. I asked them lately if they had them.
They don't, because,
And they said they thought they were in storage, but it had pictures of people's pink bathrooms and blue bathrooms.
That's what-
So, yeah.
so that's where some of these pictures came from. So my daughter worked at DNR and my wife's uncle worked up there too. I don't know if you know Ron Brosmer or Norm Brosmer, all them. So Ron I was like, there's gotta be more information here. He's like,
Boxes.
he said, I got boxes back here. And then when Dana left, DNR said, hey, we got all these boxes, we don't know what to do with. Do you want them? And it's like, yes, these are those papers you're talking about. But what's really neat is nobody had the key to it, track 476. But the Corps has the map that matches the track, so I can match
So
those.
you have the boxes?
I got the
now?
boxes now, I got them back and I put them in storage.
I'm in the process of giving, they're archiving things in Indianapolis, and they have all my records, and we're supposed to digitalize them. And so I asked about that,
Polaroid.
yes, those kind of files.
Those are like Polaroid.
They may not be Polaroids, but
It's a size they had back then.
yeah,
But you saw, it was almost, it was eerie, and it
it
was
is.
painful to think, there's where people's homes have pictures.
Exactly, and that's why I didn't bring them all along, because it's like, I didn't
Some
want
of
to
those
show
people
everybody's,
lost everything, yeah.
Well,
So-
yeah, and that-
like, this is inside the church, so if you just want to, yeah, come on up then if you want, I mean, help yourself.
Yeah, and that was gonna be one of my other questions, is there some sort of book or someplace you can go to get the history
Yeah,
on
here's
the
your-
areas?
If you're talking about your one,
I can answer that question.
sorry, go
She
ahead.
asked if there was a history, and when I was there was a man named Fred Dillard who had taught school all over that area. He lived, his family lived with the visitor center. So, he wrote his memoirs in 1971 during the winter, and he starts out, I'm sitting here in my house and it's cold and almost everybody's moved away, because he was one of the last to leave, I guess. Anyway, he went up and down the roads from Wycliffe to Newton Stewart, from the crossroads to Elon, and he described every farm and family. So that was, then he gave that to the State Historical Society, and it couldn't be read without his permission. So I got his permission, and then we typed it, and they have it at the visitor center. You can go there and look
Okay.
at it.
I know that they got
It's
some,
all typed
they got some recordings there, but
out. And they, yeah, I did a oral history
I don't know if
project
they
for 2 years.
still know they have.
Surely
Because, well,
they
Dana's
have
gone.
transcripts.
I've seen some of the transcripts, I'd kinda like to get
I'm
a
sure they would have all those
copies of that
tapes.
too, so.
And they have video.
Yeah, I read that that's where Maria did it.
No, I did them.
Oh, you did 'em?
I did 'em. She came in after they were done,
Okay,
but she was excellent at doing the transcripts.
Yeah.
I never had the patience.
so you worked up there too then, or, do you know, Norm, and did you know?
Yeah, I started there early July of '79.